Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. I'm also happy to be the first governor to refer to you as such, as the newly minted Deputy President, Honorable Chief Justice and all judges of the Supreme Court. Allow me to also acknowledge the protocol already established. Indeed, we're here to celebrate our judiciary and the Supreme Court. The number of years that we've had the Supreme Court, it has been a symbol of stability for our country. Your Excellency, I have noted the remarks by the registrar outlining the history of this building and of this area we call Government Square. On Friday, it was very beautiful to see during the swearing in of our Deputy President how the land next to us in Government Square brings together all the arms of government. Your Excellency, the Speakers of Parliament walked across from the chambers. The Chief Justice and the Deputy Chief Justice walked across from this building. The Deputy President walked across from Harambee House, signaling the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. And the Governor of Nairobi also walked across from City Hall, symbolizing devolution. Your Excellency, it is not just on Friday. This entire area has a history, and it began as a church. In 1903, where we have parliament buildings today, there was St. Stephen's Church. And it started as a wooden and tin structure. It was called the Tin Tabernacle. From 1903 until 1950, when the Tin Tabernacle moved, because at that point, the Africans were moved to Jogoo Road, to what we have as St. Stephen's, and the Europeans moved to what we call All Saints Cathedral. But before that, in 1930, this building was put up as the first symbol of government authority around here. After we had the the judiciary building here in 1935, City Hall was built right next. So everyone else became a visitor after. Thereafter, in 1954, after the Tin Tabernacle had moved to Jogoo Road, is when Parliament building was put up. So you're our visitors. Between City Hall and the judiciary, we want to welcome you to Government Square. And then, of course, later on, Your Excellency, actually around 1950, in the 50s, is when Harambee House was actually put up over here. I'm very happy with the suggestion that all these arms of government can now come together to really concretize this Government Square. When we saw that ceremony, I think all presidents should be inaugurated here. And we hope in 2027, Your Excellency, we shall come for your inauguration at Government Square. And that I'll also walk across as the Governor of Nairobi at that point. Your Excellency, in 2015, I was a member of Parliament and chairman of the Committee on Equalization of Opportunities and National Cohesion. We had gone on a trip to New Zealand to look at the history of the Maoris and the Europeans, and also Australia, the Aborigines and the Europeans, to see how they were able to come together. On my flight back, I sat next to a gentleman called Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson, because now you have to have small talk. We met in the lounge and said hi, then we realized we share a name, Johnson. And so just small talk, he told me he has a friend who has invested heavily in Kenya. This friend of his had been in Russia, he had been in Europe, he had put in investment, it didn't work out, and he had run into trouble in Kenya. And so when this gentleman learned that I was a member of Parliament, he told me, why don't you meet our friend and have a discussion to see how you can help him. Those days I was a bit powerful. I was the chairman of the ruling party, TNA, so I felt I could help him. This gentleman came to my office at KICC on the 26th floor. We had a cup of tea. He spoke about how Kenya is a great country, how we should market Kenya more. And then he finished and said, thank you, we'll see you. And I told him, I thought you have a problem with your, what was called a little investment. He sat back down and told me, if you look at the amount of money we've invested in Kenya, if you look at the risk we've taken, if I needed to know somebody to sort out my problem, I would not invest in Kenya. This country has a strong judiciary. This country has the rule of law. My matter is in court. I am sure it will be adjudicated fairly. That gentleman, Your Excellency, is Steve Jennings, and his little investment is Tatu City. He did not want to know anyone But he knew because we have a strong and firm judiciary, we have the rule of law, we have a court that can stop a presidential inauguration, and also a court that can quickly, swiftly, following the due course, swear in a deputy president. After other institutions have finished their work, Kenya is a destination for investment. He told me, Your Excellency, he told me that even if he was given free land in some of the neighboring countries because of diplomacy I shall not mention, even if he got free land, he would not move there. Because a change of regime would mean risk to his investment. I really want us to appreciate the judiciary of the Republic of Kenya. Because, Your Excellency, without them, this would not be a destination for investment. We congratulate you for the number of years that you've had. We have had ups and downs in this country, but everyone has always known that there will be objectivity in your findings. But your objectivity also must not mean popularity. It must mean just doing the right thing. I was thinking this morning when I came, what does it feel like to be a judge of the Supreme Court? I don't know, Emeritus Mutunga, how does it feel like? Chief Justice Maraga, it's almost a godlike, the finality of your decision. You know, I would draw you to one of the points by Khalil Gibran on punishment and crime. And he speaks to it, that must be exercised in a way that is judicious. Because ultimately, the ultimate judge is God. I really admire the judges of the Supreme Court that we have. You exemplify, that attribute that this country must be. And even us in other arms of government, we look up to you. On behalf of governors, I thank you because you have stood for devolution. You have supported devolution in this country. I remember as a senator marching to court, we frog-marched our speaker. He didn't want to go. He's now a governor, Lusaka, he's governor again. We told him, you must go. Because at that point, we felt devolution was under threat. The deputy president was also there, marching to the court, Professor Kindiki. But we found solace. And many times, the judgments will not be popular to us or acceptable, but they must be respected. And so I am happy that we have judges who are immune to popularity. You don't have to make a decision whether that is popular. Leave popularity to President William Ruto, Professor Kindiki, PCS, and ourselves. We are the ones who want to be popular with the people. But for you, just do what is right, as sober as a judge, and our country will remain solid. Your Excellency, with those many remarks, I know we've had a discussion about our favorite topic, which is the land over here, the Nairobi County land, that will soon host the Supreme Court building. I had mentioned that I have never been a client of the Supreme Court. I don't intend to be in my individual capacity soon, unless I vie for presidency one day, you never know. But in my individual capacity, no. And so I would not want to be out of favor with the Supreme Court. The land over here, you have pronounced yourselves, and the Constitution, Article 62 says all unalienated public land, as at the point of promulgation of the Constitution of Kenya, is vested with the NLC and with the county government. For us to do that proper allotment, following the procedures, to have a new Supreme Court building would be something that we'll all be proud of as a legacy of President William Ruto, myself, and the Chief Justice. So please count on our support. And also, Madam Chief Justice, you're the chair of our Nyumba Kumi over here, being the first resident. Please convene us once in a while. Convene your neighbors at City Hall, at Parliament, and at the Executive, even for a cup of tea. We'll be very happy to come. With those many remarks, Karibuni in Nairobi. I've been asked to welcome you to Nairobi, though I know all of you live in Nairobi. But I'm sure it feels nice to be welcomed by the governor of Nairobi every so often to your home. Asanteni sana, and may God bless you.
Thank you very much, Governor Sakaja. It is now my pleasure to call on the Supreme Court Judge of Kenya, Judge, Honorable Lady Justice Njoki Ndung'u, to make some remarks. Tumpigie makofi akija tafadhali. Welcome.
His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, the Deputy President, Honorable Professor Kithure Kindiki, the Honorable Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, Lady Justice Martha Koome, Honorable Chief Justices of various jurisdictions, Deputy Chief Justice Lady Justice Philomena Mwilu, Prime Cabinet Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi, the Governor of Nairobi County, brothers and sisters, judges, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor and privilege to welcome you all to the Supreme Court at 12 Jurisprudential Conference. In early March this year, the judges of the Supreme Court of Kenya, during our annual retreat, realized that the time has come for us to engage the Kenyan public, including ordinary Kenyans, civil society groups, members of the bench, members of the bar, and academia, as well as state actors who are affected by our decisions in their work and in their lives. We also determined that we would engage our colleagues in other apex courts, both in the African region and globally, to assess our progress as a court and to ensure we remain on course as guardians of the Constitution. It has always been the rule of thumb, however, globally, that judges speak only through their judgments. However, in the contemporary world, judges often find themselves under intense scrutiny and criticism without a chance to respond or engage, even to clarify, if need be, the reasoning of their decisions. Traditionally, judges have had no platform from which to speak apart from the courtroom, from where, in an adversarial system of justice, at least one party leaves unhappy. But this conference is therefore conceived by the desire to demystify the court's role and processes and to correct misconceptions about its mandate by deepening public understanding of the court. While judges are not infallible, in a democratic space, the public need to be afforded structured engagement where, from time to time, they can learn about what judges do, where they sit, when and how they do their work, and most importantly, why they do it. This is the reason we are all here today, and this week, to share, to engage, to learn, and to reflect. Your Excellency, allow me briefly to reminisce on the history of our Constitution, and in particular, the evolution of the independence of the judiciary. Kenya's constitutional journey to date has been a fairly long and tedious process, from the Independence Constitution and to numerous amendments to it in 1964, and many from 1969 to 1991, and later in 1997. Many of those early amendments, particularly those before 1991, changed the character and tenor of the Constitution. Judiciary estimates were considered not independently, but we were considered a department, like the Office of the Attorney General. The security of tenure of judges was removed, drastically and adversely affecting judicial outcomes, with judges being appointed and dismissed at will by the President, and calls would come in at night from political actors directing what judges should do the next day. These were dark times indeed. Thankfully, this is no longer the case. By 1990, Kenyans were demanding for change, including opening up of democratic space, respect for human rights, accountable state institutions, and independence of judges. Comprehensive constitutional review, however,